Hello and welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest. I am Thomas Lonewolf, the director of the DEFCON Warning System. We had a really positive response to the last digest that we did. A lot of people liked how it was very casual, sound like it was just two guys talking at a pub. That was actually one of the comments that we got. We're going to try and do more of these. Now things are kind of calm. There's no immediate crisis going on. We're going to try and do these a little bit more often. We hope to have a really special digest coming up for you. Recently, one of our staff members was invited to a Mensa conference to give a speech on OS Intel. For those of you who don't know, Mensa is an organization of really, really smart people. And so he was invited there. I don't know if he wants me using his name or his handle or whatever, so I'm going to reserve that for now. And when we do the actual digest on that, if we can, we'll give him the credit that it's due. He does have a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to be uploading that to the site. Hopefully we're going to have this for the digest. I don't know. I don't know if his speech was actually recorded. If it was, we'll give it to you as he did it. Maybe if it wasn't, he'll redo the speech. But either way, it's really, really fascinating. We're really, really honored that he was able to do that. And I am not a member of Mensa, so let me just say that. I don't even know if I would qualify. My ego prevents me from wanting to say what my IQ is. It's not 60. Don't even try and make those kind of comments. What this digest is going to do is it's going to go into a more detailed analysis of the update that we did at the beginning of the month. The updates are designed to be very, very quick. They're supposed to be just news bites, very brief, so we're not able to go into a lot of details why we came to those conclusions. They're just very, very fact-based. So here's our chance to be able to expand on those, explain what we thought, and give more detail on the facts that we were presenting. For more in-depth analysis, and you really want to visit our community forums, that's where you're able to interact with the DEFCON staff. We're able to go back and forth. We're able to answer your questions, go into greater detail. I know a lot of people on Twitter or Facebook, they leave comments about, what does this mean, or what's your source, or anything like that. Twitter is not a good tool for communication. We read it, we try to, we're not often able to read every comment. We certainly aren't able to respond to every comment. There's just a lot going on. And with Twitter and Facebook, we're spread far too many different places. And plus, your question is probably asked by thousands of others. We really would prefer if you come to the community forum. That way, we're able to have better control of the conversation. We know exactly who's asking what, and it's a nice little thread as opposed to Twitter comments, which are just kind of like all over the place, or Facebook comments. At Facebook, we try and read them. Twitter more so. Facebook is kind of, I don't know. When they send us notifications that someone's made a comment, they don't say what the comment was. They make us go all the way to Facebook, log in, look down this list. That's kind of confusing. Facebook, we really don't like to use the comments there. So especially if you're on Facebook and if you're on Twitter, please, if you want to comment, come to the forums. Like I said, it's a lot easier for us there. It makes our life a lot easier. We will try to comment on Facebook and Twitter, but it really is better if you go to the community forum. So like I said, this digest is going to go more into detail on what the update was. I am going to go through this digest once it's done and edit out a lot of the stammers and pauses. I know some people said, they kind of liked it. It sounded more casual, sound more real. Other people said, yeah, I don't like those uhs that you keep tossing in there. So I'm gonna try and edit those out. But like I said, no, like we did last time, this is going to be off the cuff, no notes. I'm not looking at any notes or anything like this. I'm just reading the update, and then I'm going to go into details. A lot of people like that. It felt more real, felt more believable, felt more truthful. Others would prefer something a bit more structured. So please let us know your feedback. Let us know if you like this format or if you prefer us to be more, hello, this is Tom Brokaw with So-and-So Network, and today we're going to be talking about the nuclear threat against the United States as related to North Korea, Russia, and Iran. Would you like something like that? I certainly would, but it's for you guys. We want to do what makes you the most comfortable, what you like the most, because this is a service industry. Actually, our job is to give you the information you need to make an informed decision as to the threat of nuclear war. The only way I can do that is if you are listening. So give us feedback. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. We love hearing when we're doing stuff right. We need to hear when we're doing stuff wrong, and we have changed things based on feedback. So I know I should be saying all this at the end because nobody really wants to hear it now. But I'm going to say we do change things based on feedback. We really do. We have in the past. We will again. So please let us know what you think. So right now, there are currently no imminent nuclear threats against the United States at this time. I want you to understand what we mean by imminent nuclear threats. That doesn't mean that there's not stuff going on in the world that can't blow up, for lack of a better word, into a war. There's North Korea. There's Iran. There is stuff going on in Syria that's involving both Russia and the United States. When Russia and the United States get together, that's always cause for concern. So there's stuff that can happen. There's economic crisis. There's a trade war brewing with Russia and China. Trade wars have erupted into real wars before. This one certainly can as well. But that doesn't mean that there's an imminent nuclear threat. You're not going to wake up tomorrow with bombs falling. Not going to happen. Not going to happen next week. Probably not going to happen next month. Probably won't happen in 6 months, a year, 5 years. Notice I get a little bit more iffy the further on we go out because there's just too many variables when it comes to what happens in the future. The further out we go, the more we just don't know. Tomorrow, there's not going to be a nuclear war. Don't worry about it. Go out and live your life. Me, I'm going to play a video game once I'm done with this. Actually, I'm going to go have dinner, then I'm going to play a video game. So just don't worry. I'm not building my shelter. I'm not stocking up food. I actually am stocking up food. I am working on shelter, but I'm not rushing stuff into the shelter. I'm not putting up sandbags and things like that. Just go and enjoy your life. Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Today's got enough worries of its own. But also remember, it says, the fool walks blindly and doesn't prepare for the problems of the future. I'm kind of mangling that proverb, but you understand what it means. But there are no imminent nuclear threats against the United States at this time. And remember that we only talk about threats against the United States. We do monitor for nuclear war in the world because any nuclear war can spill over into nuclear war affects the United States. But we monitor specifically for nuclear war against the United States. So if there's a nuclear war between India and Pakistan, DEFCON level is not going to go to 1. It's going to go to 3. Maybe 2, but our focus is the United States. That doesn't mean we're not thinking about Europe. Doesn't mean we're not thinking about Australia. Doesn't mean we're not thinking about North Korea or South Korea. Please, we do monitor the entire world, but the DEFCON level reflects the threat against the United States. So, analysis of North Korea's destruction of its nuclear testing site revealed that explosions were superficial and insufficient to destroy the facility. Some experts are expressing belief that some tunnels are still usable. Technical equipment was also removed prior to detonation, allowing North Korea to restart or continue its nuclear program. This goes in line with recent statements that U.S. intelligence agencies have concluded that North Korea is attempting to secretly make more nuclear fuel suitable for weapons despite the Singapore summit. Additionally, commercial satellite imagery from June 21st indicates that improvements to the infrastructure at North Korea's Yongbyon Nuclear Scientific Research Center are continuing at a rapid pace. Now, believe it or not, these were very controversial statements when we posted these out. You should have seen the comments that we got. They were some of them were quite horrible. A lot of them were, you're bashing the president of the United States. You're just a liberal organization. Liberal, yeah, right. You're just one of these mainstream media, people who are just trying to, make things look bad. These are just facts. Analysis of the destruction of North Korea's testing site revealed that explosions were superficial. The explosions were superficial. That's a fact. They were insufficient to destroy the facility. That's an analysis based on these facts. We're not commenting on whether the Singapore summit was successful, whether the United States was duped, whether North Korea was honest or dishonest. We're simply saying that they didn't destroy the facility. Politics in the United States has gotten really bad, and we're going to do a DEFCON digest on politics and how it affects defense, especially because, politics will affect how the representatives, how the elected officials respond to threats, whether they prepare for it. And we're gonna save this all for another digest. So I don't really want to go into it deeply here, but I am going to say that Politics in the United States has become incredibly polarized. European politics is different than how it is in the United States. It's kind of fun watching the Italians, beat each other up. It's really entertaining. We don't have stuff like that in the United States. I kind of wish it would happen every once in a while. It definitely boosts the ratings on C-SPAN, but it's gotten to the point where people are now shooting each other over different political beliefs, and it's gotten where you can't even report facts anymore without succumbing to politics. Being human, we all have our political beliefs, and that is going to encroach on anybody's reporting. But the good journalist knows how to at least try and separate his political beliefs from his journalism. Walter Cronkite was very good at that. He was very liberal, but that didn't get into his reporting. You don't have that anymore in the United States. Now it's almost all propaganda and agendized. So it's really difficult to read something and know whether this is pushing a political agenda or if this is a fact. Now, it's kind of insidious the way that it works. And again, I think I'm going far too off, so I may end up repeating some of this in the next digest. That, someone may report event A happened because it supports his political agenda, but he won't report that event B happened because it doesn't support his political agenda. So this, going back to our update, all we are doing is putting facts out there, and our analysis is based on the facts. If something out there happens that I don't politically agree with or I don't politically like, I'm not going to hold that back just because I don't like it. We're going to put it out there because it's important for you to know. And the only way you're able to make a decision on what to do for your family's safety is to know what's happening out there. So if we go out there and we say that North Korea's destruction of its nuclear testing site revealed that explosion was superficial and insufficient to destroy the facility, we're not attacking the President of the United States. We're simply saying, this is what happened. That's a fact. How that all plays out, well, that's something else. That's for analysts to figure out. That's for politicians to figure out. That's for the public to figure out whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. But that's a fact. And so we're going to put it out there. And it doesn't matter whether that fits someone's political agenda. It doesn't matter if that offends you. It doesn't matter if that makes you think that we're for or against somebody. We're not. Notice how not once have I said Donald Trump. Not once have I said Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin. Said the United States, North Korea, Russia, China, because all this kind of transcends these individual people, because when the nuclear missiles launch, they're not going to just hit Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un. It's going to get all of us. And their decisions that they make are going to affect the countries and the world long after they're gone. So none of this is intended to impinge upon someone personally. These are just facts. So that's why it took a lot of time to explain exactly why we say what we're saying. Never to support someone, never to tear someone down, just to give you the information you need in order to make an intelligent decision of what's going to happen next. These pictures of the facility came from satellite imagery and also on the ground from the reporters. As I believe we said in the last digest, the reporters were not allowed near the site. They were far away in a staging area. Experts were not allowed to go to the site to see exactly what was destroyed. So the area was effectively cordoned off and sterilized. So all we are able to see is what was visible from the staging area and from satellite technology. And the analysts who looked at this said these weren't sufficient to do the job and destroy the place. Most likely what happened was that they were sealing off the damaged area from the previous nuclear test that damaged the site in the first place. That's what these explosions were. You have to remember that North Korea has also been digging new tunnels in the area in a different wing. Now, if they had intended to destroy the site, why were they doing that? Those tunnels are still there. So this site is still usable. Again, that has nothing to do with a criticism of the Singapore summit. That's just what happened. Technical equipment was also removed from this testing site prior to detonation, allowing North Korea to restart or continue its nuclear program. Now, that's kind of not unusual. They said they were going to destroy the site. They didn't say they were going to destroy the equipment. I think if the United States was going to destroy a site, they would remove the equipment as well. So this really didn't hit our radar as much as did the insufficient destruction to destroy the facility. That's what really got our attention. Now, it's important to note that some analysts believe that North Korea has now moved beyond the need to conduct underground testing, that to further their nuclear program, all they need to do now is computer simulations. I will say right now that whether that statement is true or false, I don't know. I'm going to punt that to somebody else. I am an expert on the threat of nuclear war. That is what I do. As far as how nuclear weapons work and what it takes to develop a nuclear weapon, I'm punting. I don't know. That is not my thing. I'm going to leave that to others. We have people on our staff who can do that. We have people in the public who are more than happy to come to us and say, this is what needs to happen. And this is what our community forum is for. You can come there and say, at this stage, this is what you need to do. You have to have underground testing, but once you reach this point, then you can do everything else on computers. You notice the United States has been not blowing up bombs all over the place. They do their stuff on computers now. Russia does stuff on computers now. So has North Korea now passed that point? Are they now able to do stuff on computers? Good question. So that's why North Korea, we may not know whether they're continuing their nuclear program. They may not need underground testing anymore. Maybe they're done. It is our analysis that they are continuing their nuclear program. We wrote an article a little while ago called No Good Choices with North Korea. Can't remember the exact title. It talks about how nuclear weapons is a matter of honor with North Korea. It's part of their identity, and they have no intention of giving them up. They can say whatever they want. They can make whatever agreement they want. They're not going to give it up. That's a hard thing for the West to accept, especially if we have political agendas where we want this president to succeed. Well, again, it doesn't matter what we want. It just matters what is happening. So this also goes in line with statements from U.S. intelligence agencies that have concluded that North Korea is attempting to secretly make more nuclear fuel suitable for weapons despite the Singapore summit. This was an enormously controversial statement when we put it out. This was kind of what led to the whole, you guys are part of the left-wing media. Ha 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 ha. No, we're not. There's this one site that goes around, media bias fact check. I think that's what they're called. And they look over sites to see how biased they are. And we were rated plink right in the middle. We are absolutely least biased. I was pretty proud of that. We worked really hard for that kind of designation. We didn't even know they did that. We never contacted them. We never even heard of them until they came up on a Google search. So there it is. But a lot of people were really upset at this, especially because these statements by U.S. intelligence agencies, they were made anonymously. They were reported by one of the journalist media, and they quoted anonymous sources. And that's kind of like how things are done a lot. They're always anonymous sources. They aren't anonymous to the reporter, but they aren't made public because they don't want to reveal their source. And so it was said, well, who knows what these sources are? It's probably just Joe Black on the street who just wants to make, the United States look bad. Well, come on. Based on what we know about North Korea, this really fits in line with what they've done in the past. It really, it's not outside reason for them to do this. Plus, they also have, peaceful nuclear needs, energy. It's not surprising, but you got to remember that this stuff that's made for peace can be used for war. Additionally, commercial satellite imagery from June 21st indicates that improvements to the infrastructure at North Korea's Yongbyon Nuclear Scientific Research Center are continuing at a rapid pace. These satellite imagery, these are available to anyone, and a lot of groups, look at these images. And this is one of the problems with OS Intel. And I'm hoping that the Mensa conference got into this, but there are some groups who look at these and they are so quick to come to conclusions that they're wrong. There was a big brouhaha like last year or so where this one group looking at these satellite images, and they concluded this was a long-range missile site, or this image represented something else. I don't remember what it was. And it actually made the newspapers. This group says that this is a long-range missile site, or this is something else. And it turned out that they were just flat wrong. That further analysis said that these weren't what they were claiming it was. But they were so quick in order to trumpet themselves that they just completely screwed up. And they got up someone called it failing upward, because despite the fact that they were wrong, they got a lot of prestige out of it. They were quoted in a newspaper, and so therefore they got a lot of legitimacy, even though they were legitimately wrong. But that's the problem with a lot of OS intel. That's the reason I bring this up, because you don't really, everybody wants an expert, and everybody who claims to be an expert, are they really experts? Just a couple minutes ago, and I will put this out. Just a couple minutes ago, I said I was an expert on nuclear war. Well, am I? I didn't go to school. I don't have a fancy degree that says nuclear war expert. My schooling, I'm a firefighter. I'm an EMT. I do medical transportation. That's what I do for a living. I didn't go to school for intelligence. This is just something I've done for 30 years. Analyzing nuclear war. So I don't have a degree, I don't have sheepskin, I don't have anything like that. But I think after 30 years of studying nuclear war and studying Russia and now studying, North Korea and China and the Middle East for so many years, I think that I can at least arguably say, yeah, I kind of know what I'm talking about. I can toss around the word expert and at least not have somebody go, oh, come on, no, you're not, roll your eyes. But really, this is the internet, and anybody can claim anything. I can say anybody can say they're an expert on, on the Blue Man Group or black holes or nuclear war or anything like that. And who really knows? But this analysis about the improvements to the infrastructure at North Korea's Yongbyon Nuclear Scientific Research Center. And I know I kind of went off on a tangent there. I do that, especially because it did kind of irritate me when these groups come out here and make these ridiculous claims that turn out to be false. Well, they just screw it up for the rest of us. But this satellite imagery of the infrastructure of the Yongbyon plant comes from 38 North, and I'm going to drop their name right here. 38 North. They are considered the go-to people for North Korea. They are based on a university. No, I take that back. They are part of a policy research center, not a university. I remember they were connected to one recently until their funding was cut. So please forgive me. But these are the real go-to guys when it comes to North Korea. We use them a lot. 38north.org if you want to see them yourself. So we endorse them. They actually do follow us on Twitter. We publish their articles every once in a while, and then just give a little clip of what their article is, and then send you to them because they're just so good. So if you want North Korea stuff, go to them. So they're the ones who came up with this analysis of the Yongbyon plant. So North Korea is still working on their nuclear technology. Now continuing in Korean, obviously the grammar checker didn't catch that. Continuing Korea, North Korea has signed a document restating its position to denuclearize Korean theater. Analysts note the wording of that statement, which implies that there are to be no nuclear weapons in South Korea as well. It's important for people to understand, especially in the West, that denuclearization means different things to North Korea than it does to the United States and to people in the West. That's just a culture thing. Also, North Korea, like anyone, plays with the language in order to get the best out of any deal. So to denuclearize, what does that mean? Does that mean take weapons offline? Does that mean destroy weapons? Does that mean simply not aim them at your enemy, like the United States and Russia did recently? Not recently, it was several years ago. It used to be that the United States and Russia had their missiles targeted at each other. Now, the United States has their missiles targeted out to sea, or not targeted at all. I can't remember which it is. I think it was out to sea, but maybe I just heard that in the movie. But they are not targeted at Russia right now. That is a symbolic gesture. It takes all of 5 seconds to retarget your missile. All they do is they just plug in a target package and blip, the coordinates go out to the missiles, and there you go. They're retargeted. So it's really just a symbolic gesture. But is that what denuclearize means to North Koreans? Just simply don't target your missiles, and then with the press of the button, boink, they're targeted again. That's the problem that people are having with North Korea, the negotiators have, because they don't know what North Korea means. Therefore, you don't really know how to negotiate. If you just negotiate denuclearize and the United States pulls everything out, and when Korea said denuclearize, all they meant was just not target your missiles at South Korea or the United States, well, North Korea technically lived up to their end of the bargain. But the United States is not going to accept that. So that's one of the sticking points that they're having with negotiations with North Korea. And that is something that is very, very important for people to understand with North Korea, that words to the West don't mean the same thing as they do to the East. So when we walk in there and say you have to be careful with this sort of stuff, again, we go back to politics. It's not about bashing. It's about understanding who you are dealing with. And this is why, we mentioned this last digest. I will briefly touch on this. This is why there was such a controversy over Donald Trump saying it was an honor to meet Kim Jong-un. Well, that was a very big deal in the Western world, the United States, to say, well, you should be honored to meet with this madman. That is how you culturally talk to them. You have to say things like that because that is their culture. It is a very honor-based system. So that's enough of that. I promise I'm not going to go off into too many tangents. I lied. I'm going to, but here it is. The United States says it will stop war games with South Korea while North Korea ends anti-U.S. propaganda. That actually happened. The United States stopped its annual war games. South Korea also stopped some exercises, and North Korea has ended a lot of its anti-U.S. propaganda. People in North Korea say that the anti-U.S. posters have been taken down. They've been replaced with a lot of softer posters with North Korea and the United States. I'll see if I can find one and post it on this video. I don't know if I will, but there has been a softer stance. It is difficult to know exactly what North Korea is saying to the military or to the peasantry, because you have to remember that people in North Korea, visitors to North Korea, are taken on guided tours. You're only allowed to see what they want you to see. So the anti-US propaganda that has been removed, we don't know where it's been removed. It certainly has been removed for the tourists to see or not see, depending on how you want to go at that. But that could just be for Western consumption. We don't know what's playing out in the rice fields or in the halls of the military. You have to remember that these people have grown up with anti-US propaganda for years and years, all their lives. You're not going to be able to turn that off in just a couple of weeks. Not the distrust, not the hatred, not the honor of defeating your enemy. So we don't actually know how far North Korea has gone to end its anti-US propaganda. But South Korea has stopped the propaganda. They had these very large speakers on the demilitarized zone blasting propaganda in North Korea. That has stopped. So a lot of people have questioned whether the United States has given up too much at the Singapore summit. They've stopped the war games, they've stopped exercise, stopped propaganda, and North Korea has done what? They blew up their nuclear testing facility? No. They've stopped nuclear research? No. They've repatriated some people. Yeah, that's true. That's a positive step. But anything tangible? Has the United States given up too much? We don't know. And the thing is, the negotiations have taken a turn because while North Korea was turning its rhetoric down after the Singapore summit, it's gone back up. The United States continues to take a very hard stand against North Korea. It still has the sanctions in place, which North Korea wants to get rid of. And this recent meeting with Pompeo in North Korea did not go well at all, with North Korea calling the United States, saying the United States was using gangster tactics. We've pretty much almost gone back to where we were before the Singapore summit. Now, again, where your politics lies is how you're going to interpret what I just said. It is, and I'm sorry, but it's a fact that that's what North Korea said. It is a fact that the United States' strong stance is what is leading to this. I'm not saying that the United States is wrong to take this stand. I'm not saying it's wrong the United States be strong with North Korea and continue the sanctions and continue its bellicose negotiating style. I'm just saying that if the United States does this, this is how North Korea is going to react. Now, you can look at it that the United States' strong stand is what brought North Korea to the negotiating table. But you also have to remember that it wasn't just the United States. It was a united world imposing some very harsh sanctions on North Korea that included China and the European Union. That's not happening anymore. China is now very happy with the situation on the Korean Peninsula because it's stable as far as you can be stable in the area. And that's what China wants. China doesn't want the United States there. China wants no war in the area. And so China has now been easing up on the sanctions. There's a lot of backdoor underground movement between China and North Korea. And as long as North Korea is comfortable with the relief that China is giving to North Korea, it has no incentive to come back to the negotiating table. It has no incentive to stop its nuclear program. And here's the problem where the United States sits. The United States has North Korea, and it needs China to impose sanctions. But China and the United States aren't getting along very well right now. They've got a trade war brewing, and you've got South China Sea going on. China's not got a whole lot of incentive to work with the United States over North Korea. As long as North Korea doesn't look like it's going to blow up into a war, what reason does China have with the United States to work with the United States? Now, the United States has its own problem. We're going to get more into this in just a couple of minutes. But if it's fighting with China over the trade war, it's lost an ally over North Korea. So here is where we sit. The United States has nobody backing it with sanctions over North Korea. North Korea is not feeling the effects of the sanctions like it was. So North Korea sees no real threat from the United States. As much as the United States is trying to be strong like it was before with North Korea, what drove North Korea to the negotiating table, the United States doesn't have much bite to it left anymore, because China is not backing the United States anymore. As long as the United States isn't going back to the position it was prior to the Singapore summit, meaning holding military exercises, threatening it with military attack, the US has no bite to it, and North Korea knows that. So what incentive does North Korea have to give up its nuclear program? And the answer is none. It has food enough as far as it cares. Not that it has food enough as far as any normal person cares, but they got enough as they care. The leadership has all the luxuries it wants. It's got plenty of slaves to do its bidding. They're fine. So it is our belief that we are going to see things move backwards now. It may be a little while because diplomatically, politically, the United States really doesn't want to go back to where it was a year ago, where we really were pretty close to war, especially with midterm elections coming up. And who knows where the U.S. government is going to go after that. The U.S. government could become pretty destabilized in a few months if the opposition party takes over, who has promised to do everything they can to destroy the U.S. president. So it's really tough for the United States to take a strong stand when the country itself is tipping towards civil war. But again, that's politics. But North Korea is in a very strong position right now and has no reason to give up its nuclear program. Not as things currently are. Things can change. Things can always change. But where it's going to go, who knows? We will see probably in about 6 months. There's a little note in here as well as Syria is to meet with North Korea. That is not really so much of an immediate threat. That I don't really read that as Syria wanting to get nuclear weapons, especially not with Russia backing it. They really don't have any need to. Plus, I'm not exactly sure how happy Russia would be if Syria were to go nuclear. This is more of a stick it to the United States. North Korea is an enemy of the United States. We don't like the United States. Hey, let's get together. And if some nuclear technology happens to come Syria's way, all the more the bonus. This is kind of the same thing with Iran and North Korea. Iran doesn't like the United States. Let's get together with North Korea. In that case, hey, nuclear secrets. Speaking of Iran has notified the International Atomic Energy Agency, I'm starting to get tongue-tied, that it has launched a plan to increase its uranium enrichment capacity and has reopened an enrichment plant. Additional movements by Iran are expected as the Iran nuclear deal falls apart, with the United States pressuring the European Union to place more sanctions on Iran. this kind of all we knew was going to happen. I talked just a couple of minutes ago about Europe and Russia and China not being terribly happy with the United States. The United States under the the United States a few years ago was very soft, apologetic. Everyone remembers the apology tour. Now that the United States has taken a stronger stance for itself, a lot of the other countries aren't too happy with that. It doesn't help that the United States got very bellicose recently, actually called the European Union a foe. Now, in context, they were talking about, in terms of trade, the United States feel that that the European Union has not been fair with its trade, has not been living, and NATO has not been living up to its obligations for paying for its own defense. So the United States has irritated its allies by calling them out on this. Well, when you're trying to build a coalition against Iran or trying to build a coalition against North Korea, it doesn't really work well to irritate your allies, no matter how right you are. We're not talking about what is right or wrong. We're talking about the reality of the political, diplomatic world. And if you want an ally to help stand against North Korea or Iran, you don't want to be pointing out your allies' faults. In essence, the United States is fighting too many fires at once. You can't fight Iran and North Korea and the European Union and Russia at the same time. Because if you want them as allies, you can't fight them at the same time. And that is kind of what is going on right now. Right or wrong, whether the United States is right that the European Union is a trade foe, right or wrong, whether China has a legitimate claim to South China Sea, if you want them on your side to fight Iran and North Korea, you got to pick your battles. And the United States hasn't been doing very well at that. If you're speaking in terms of honor, they're probably right. They are right. But sometimes you got to just swallow your pride and deal with this fire later and put this other fire out right now. So that's where the United States is kind of finding itself right now. Plus also, you have to understand that the European Union really wants the Iranian nuclear deal to continue. They are not really interested in putting more sanctions on Iran. And the reason for that is threefold. One is they make a lot of money dealing with Iran. That's the bottom line. They weren't happy putting the sanctions on in the first place, and they certainly don't want to put them on again now. They're making too much money. So Europe really has no incentive to back out of the nuclear deal. The second is they want the area to be stable. They don't want another war. They've had two big wars last century, and they're kind of done. They don't want to do that anymore. So, and they've always been kind of weak when it came to the Middle East. I don't know if that's because of history of the Crusades or the colonialism or whatever, but whatever it is, they kind of don't want to get involved in any more military action. They just want peace in the area. So they want to take the diplomatic route every chance they get. And the third reason is because they've got a lot more to lose. And this kind of dovetails on the second reason, because the United States, they're kind of far removed from the Middle East. While Europe, they're kind of right there in the backyard. The United States has this big old ocean between them and the Middle East. Abraham Lincoln once famously said that, the armies of Europe could not by force take a drink from the rivers of America, that if destruction be our lot, we must be its authors and finishers. And that kind of philosophy has guided the United States throughout its history, that the wars are always over there, not over here. That's why the United States went so bat crap crazy when 9/11 happened, because war suddenly came here. And that's why the nutsos over there lost two countries, because the United States just went nuts and tore into them. And even they were surprised at the kind of reaction the United States had. But anyway, so the United States being insulated from Europe and the Middle East, they're a little more willing to stir the pot because it's not in their backyard. And the Europeans, with the Middle East being in their backyard, again, they kind of don't want to go in that direction. And Iran kind of knows this. That's why they aren't afraid so much of U.S. sanctions. They want to keep the Europeans in the deal. And that is why they have made these threats about restarting their nuclear program and threatening all these kind of things, because they know it makes the Europeans nervous. And so that's why they are increasing their uranium enrichment capacity, another enrichment plant. They claim all this stuff is just for, peaceful purposes. And this is something I kind of forgot to mention with North Korea, so let me tie these two things together. Nuclear-wise, when it comes to negotiations, especially with North Korea, it's impossible to separate civilian peaceful use from military use. If we were to go in with Iran or North Korea and say, you will not make any nuclear weapons, but you can have a peaceful nuclear program for energy, medical research, that doesn't happen because any nuclear research for peaceful purposes has a military application. And I will give you the perfect example. Perfectly executed radio. I think someone says it. Oh, political commentary. Okay, I won't use that. It's from Andrew Wilkow. Russia has the best rocket technology in the world. The reason for that is that unlike the United States, Russia kept up with its space program. Now, the United States does have satellites going out there. You know, they're talking about going to the moon again, Mars, and those images from Pluto were absolutely just gorgeous. I loved astronomy when I was younger. I said younger, not young. See, notice that distinction. But really, it's Russia that kept up the rocket technology. And I know that rockets tend to explode a lot. That's not because of technology. That's because of corruption. And they're just not putting the stuff together well because of corruption. But the rocket technology is just the best because they've kept up with it. Well, that peaceful rocket technology for their space program is also used for the missiles because the same rockets that send men into space also send nuclear weapons into space. So going back to Iran and North Korea, that peaceful nuclear program that gives energy also produces technology and material used for military purposes. So if we were to negotiate and give North Korea, you promised not to have a weapons program, but you can have a civilian program, those two are not separable. Whatever is made for civilian use is made for military use. And the same thing is with Iran. They cannot have a civilian nuclear program without having a military nuclear program. Iran knows that, and any sane person knows that as well. Now, additional movements by Iran are expected as the Iran nuclear deal falls apart, and with the United States pressuring the European Union to place more sanctions on Iran. And like I said, the European Union is not in the mood to do that. They made too much money. They don't want to destabilize the region. They don't want a war in the area. And the United States increasingly is alone. With the recent negotiations, the recent meetings with Angela Merkel, Theresa May, and now Vladimir Putin, and with the United States, basically, as some would say, standing up for itself, as others would say, being bellicose. The United States, like they said at the beginning of Red Dawn, the good movie, not the horrible remake. The United States stands alone. Who knows what's going to happen with NATO? Nothing in the immediate future, but even the United States now is starting to question its need. There's a line in The Day After, is the United States really willing to sacrifice Chicago for Hamburg? Well, the reverse question is also true, asked of NATO. Is Germany really willing to sacrifice Hamburg for Chicago? And the United States needs to ask itself that question. Is Europe really willing to sacrifice itself to defend the United States as the United States was willing to sacrifice itself for Europe? That's a question mark. That is a question the United States should be asking itself. I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not going to even propose one. That would be advocating a policy, and that is not something we do. We are simply telling you the way things are. China and Uganda agreed to nuclear cooperation while China lands its first bomber on South China Sea, continuing the militarization of the area. I should have broken those up. Let's start first. China and Uganda agreed to nuclear cooperation. This is something that is flying under the radar of most people. Not the fact that China and Uganda are getting together, and not the fact that Uganda is dipping its toe into nuclear power. Great, that's all we need. Nuclear weapons elsewhere. No, what most people are not seeing is that China is expanding itself, is going into Africa, is going into South America. It is making allies where it didn't have allies before. And it is also getting access to materials such as rare earth material that the United States and other countries need for its electronics and its military applications. And when China has a monopoly on those things, that means they are denied to the United States. So China is being very smart going into these neglected areas, and it is pushing the United States out. Worse, China is able to do that because the United States is giving China so much money. So the United States, here's some analysis for you, the United States is the author of its own destruction because China would not be able to do this if it wasn't for the United States and all the money the United States is giving it. And it's not just the United States alone. Europe is also doing this as well. But as I said, this is flying under the radar that China is making all these maneuvers into these neglected countries, pushing out the United States. So you watch for this. This is going to be something you're going to be seeing in about 50 years. Fortunately, this will be after my time, but some of you are going to be having to deal with this. While China lands its first bomber in the South China Sea island, continuing its militarization of the area. We all knew this. China is constantly talking about how this needs to be a local concern. Vietnam, Korea, Philippines, Japan, those areas, the United States needs to stay out. And how China wants to talk about peaceful negotiations over South China Sea. Peaceful negotiations to China means you guys get out. And by you guys, I mean everybody else. Because as far as China is concerned, South China Sea belongs to China. And peaceful negotiations means everybody else get out and do that peacefully. That is what peaceful negotiations means to them. If you think it means anything else, you're wrong. And China is going to defend that area. They are not giving it up. They're not negotiating it away. They are not going to go before any international court. In fact, that already happened. And China just said, no, that is theirs. And unless those other countries are willing to fight for it militarily, South China Sea is gone. And the United States can whine, cry, witch, and moan all they want about it. South China Sea belongs to China because China is not giving it up. It doesn't matter who actually has historical claim to it. It doesn't matter who it really rightfully belongs to. It's China's because they're going to fight for it and nobody else is going to. And unless they are willing to, that is the end of the story. And peaceful negotiations means you peacefully get out of China's way, and let them take it over. That is what peaceful negotiations means to China. Anything else means war. And that is something else you're going to see. They're going to continue militarizing that area. And if you don't believe that, you just watch. The United States is to bolster its nuclear sniffing aircraft with modified C-130s. This is part of the modernization of its fleet, also because, a lot with North Korea, they're going to be monitoring for more nuclear tests in the future if it comes to that. Plus, who knows, other countries are probably going to join the nuclear club. Next will be Iran. And Canada and Ukraine agree to increase military cooperation. Now, that does seem like a side note, but Russia is not happy about this. Russia is not happy that the West and NATO are encroaching on what it considers its sphere of influence. They weren't happy when their puppet government in Ukraine was replaced by what some would say a puppet government, a puppet of the Western variety in Ukraine. That is why they invaded Crimea. They didn't like that Ukraine was moving toward the West and they felt they were going to lose the warm water port. That's why they went into Crimea. That is why they annexed it. That's why they are never giving it up. Some waves were made when the United States dropped the idea that they may recognize the annexation of Crimea. Maybe that was just a trial balloon. Who knows? But it makes an interesting negotiating point. Would Ukraine willingly give up Crimea in exchange for a security guarantee from Russia? Now, we all know security guarantees mean nothing. But are they willing to give up what they're never going to get back anyway in exchange for a piece of paper? Who knows? Certainly, Russia has no interest in marching toward Kiev. Russia's not happy that NATO is sitting on their border with Poland, because if Russia moves to Kiev, NATO is going to react. Russia knows that. That's why they stopped where they stopped. Now, there is that little section, I think it's called Kaliningrad, I don't have the map up in front of me, where they could try and create a land bridge. But generally speaking, Russia is not going to move into Ukraine, given the situation on the ground as it is now. If Ukraine decides to go all out and try and get Crimea back, well, they may move further into Ukraine. That would be monumentally stupid of Ukraine to try and do. A better tactic would be just to hide some dirty bombs inside Russia, maybe some small suitcase nuclear weapons, and threaten to blow up a couple of their cities. That way they might get Crimea back. That isn't going to happen. I just throw that out there because that's a scenario that I'm surprised nobody has ever tried with the United States. But as it stands, Russia is not happy that the West is moving into its sphere of influence. And so anytime there is anything going on in that area with Ukraine, it's always something to watch. And that is why we make note of it. But generally speaking, the area is kind of stable. We are going to continue watching Ukraine. It has never left our radar. So there's that. That concludes the update. Thank you for joining us. I know I tried not to ramble, and it turns out I rambled just as much as I thought I was going to. I do want to give our disclaimer. The DEFCON warning system is a private intelligence organization which has monitored and assessed nuclear threats against the United States by national entities since 1984. We are not affiliated with any government agency and does not represent the alert status of any military branch. I want to emphasize that the DEFCON level does not represent the military DEFCON level. That is secret. We don't know it. We wouldn't tell it to you even if we did know it. We do have some contacts in the military. We do have some contacts in the government. They tell us things. We will not tell you those things. We have been enjoined by the military not to reveal certain things, not the DEFCON level, not military movements, not certain military movements that are publicly known, that are publicly available. We will tell you. We will not tell you about planned military moves, even if we know about them. When we do know about stuff like that or know about other stuff, we use that only for our analysis to determine what the DEFCON level should be. If we were told that the United States was going to invade Kiribati next week, we would not say the United States is going to invade Kiribati next week. We would simply make an adjustment to the DEFCON level as necessary. And in order to get the proper information out to you, we would say information has come to us that has led us to raise the DEFCON level, but we cannot say why. Or if we know that the United States is going to do A and B, we may say that the United States is going to do C and D instead. C and D may be true, but it's only tertiary linked to what's going to happen, or we'll do something to protect the identity of our source and protect the United States, but also get the information out there because you have to know. And that is our primary responsibility. But we also will not give away secrets of the United States military in order to do our job. We will get the information out to you somehow without compromising the United States military, because that is not our job. Our job is not to compromise the United States. Our job is simply to give you the information you need to make an informed decision for your family's safety. And if sometimes we have to be vague about what we say, that's just how it's going to have to be. You either can take our word for it, or you can just tell us to blow it out our ear and go about your merry way. I'm sorry you feel that way, but sometimes we have to do things that we do because we have to do it. I know every once in a while we get comments about, when we tweet something out, what's your source? For tweeting, we don't give sources. We only have so many characters to work with. If you want sources, go to the community forum. Again, the community forum, that is the best place to interact with us. Please whitelist us for your ad blockers. This site costs money for us to run. It costs us for research. It costs us for equipment. For the longest time, I paid for this out of my pocket. I don't make a lot of money. Again, firefighter EMT, we don't make a lot of money. So this is how we pay our bills. So please visit our site, visit our community forum, whitelist our ads. We try to make them as unobtrusive as we can. We are making some changes to our shop because of the new laws about internet tax. We're not able to service the items ourselves, so we're just going to refer you to the distributors, and we will take an affiliate commission for that. So expect some changes to our shop. We'll still do the DEFCON items. You'll still be able to t-shirts and mugs and things like that, but you'll be going to Cafe Press rather than getting it from us. As far as the survival gear, you'll be going to those distributors. I'm not exactly sure who they are off the top of my head because I don't really do that much with that, so that's something else, but we'll be getting that up there, so expect some changes to our shop. Thank you again for coming to our digest. Again, any comments, please leave them on our community forum. I'm Thomas Lonely Wolf, the director of the DEFCON warning system. We'll be doing more of these digests. Hopefully the next one will be about the Mensa conference. I don't know, but we'll definitely be doing one about next month's update, or of the update whenever it comes next month, certainly, unless the situation warrants, in which we will issue one earlier. As the DEFCON level goes up, we may not be able to do these digests because there's a lot more going on, especially if we get DEFCON 3 or DEFCON 2. We'll probably be way too busy to do this, other than here's our digest. Things are about to get screwed up. End of digest. That's what it may be like. So, but during the low levels, we'll do more of these digests. Thank you again. Have a good day.